Hello, and welcome to episode 8 of Harrison Talks Pod. Thank you for joining me. My name is Harrison Rich, and this is my podcast. Every week, uh, me and perhaps a guest come on. We talk about NBA basketball. Sometimes we talk about other things. But for today, it is just me, no guest. We had guest on last week. We'll have guest on next week. But now it's just me and the listeners. And today we go back and we talk more about NBA basketball now that we are a quarter of the way through and we're heading into the exciting holiday season. So, for today, we have why the Mavs are a favorite in the West, Grizzlies take second place in the West, why the Hawks are a sleeper team, heat culture, and the Suns drop 3 in a row. But first, I want to start with something a little bit different and a little bit fun. So, of course, I'm recording this in Thailand. It's a Tuesday afternoon here, Monday evening back home, and I am from St. Louis. And of course, I am a big baseball fan. Don't follow it too closely like I do basketball, but a huge St. Louis Cardinals fan. And wow, oh wow, if you are a baseball fan of any type, casual or hardcore, you feel some kind of way about the Juan Soto contract. Either you feel happy, sad, or you just um, are happy to not hear about it anymore. I might be a little bit more in the latter, but yeah, we'll ignore Twitter and everything else like that. He wasn't going to my team, so I didn't care. I didn't care too much this time around. So that happened. I'll say yesterday, my time, and it was a historic day for sure. There were parts of it that surprised me a lot, and there were parts of it that did not surprise me as as well. For those who haven't seen it, it is 15 years, 765 million, have you this exactly right, going to the Mets and no deferred money. Apparently, the Yankees had offered Juan Soto 16 years and 760 million. And this is all very crazy. Again, if you're following baseball, think about what you originally thought in 2022 when Juan Soto turned down $440 million for 15 years. Imagine that. Imagine believing in yourself so much in a sport where you can easily get injured and having $440 million thrown at you and saying no. Beyond generational money that we have. If you're a Mets fan, you have to rejoice, of course. They have not won since 1986. If I'm a Mets fan, I am only happy about this because we have an owner that wants to win now. Well, he's been the owner for 4 years, so I'll say win now, and is willing to spend for it. And 1986, that's before I was born. So I just want to see a championship. That would be my only thought going through my mind. Uh, the comparison I have as a Cardinals fan is Albert Pujols. So we saw the Cardinals win the World Series in 2011, not since then. And a few days following it, I believe one day after uh, the parade, he signed 10 years, 240 million to go to the Angels. And my thought at the time was, well, it's sad to see him go, but don't think he is going to be worth that in the long run, which was probably true. It turned out to be not a huge contract when you compare it to the big contracts that we have now. I mean, again, 15 years, 750 million. Otani's contract is estimated by the Players Association to be worth about 420 million with the deferments. It really just depends on how much 700 million is worth 20, 30 years from now. It just depends. So it's all very crazy. If you're a Yankees fan, is this better than Soto going to the Red Sox? I think I know that answer. Yankees and Mets will play at Yankee Stadium the first time. The first matchup they have is in May, so I'm sure that at least one of those games will be nationally televised. And I think we move on. I wanted to tie it all together because this is a basketball podcast. I just say, how do listeners, anyone who listens to me, feel about the status of NBA contracts? I went through last year, this last off season. Of course, there's lots of small deals, a lot of temporary vet minimum. There's over 30 players that signed over the off season for a 1 year deal, and over 40 that signed for um, a 2 year deal or a one and one. So, of course, with the salary cap, we don't see anything beyond 5 years. And it's my prediction. I won't know until I die, but it's my prediction that in my lifetime, won't see anything beyond 5 years again. We won't see these, Chris Webber 15-year deals or the Magic Johnson lifetime deal or whatever else it might be. I think when I was a kid, when I was growing up, I think it was usually like 7 years was pretty normal for something that was long term. Don't think we'll see that. In the 28-29 season, the cap should go beyond 200 million, and we already have players that will be making over 70 million that year. What year do we have players making more than $1 million per game? That's what I want to know. So, I'm trying to tie it together, but which one's better? I mean, the MLB has lots of problems right now. I think with the Dodgers having over $1 billion in deferred money and them being able to do business that way. Does the MLB continue to have problems of parity in their league until they establish some kind of soft or hard cap? And it makes me feel better about the NBA. I guess I'll try and say, as much as I don't like, bird rights sometimes, players that will sign big deals and then ask for trades because that's how they get their money. It puts me in an area where I will always want to support the player, but also wish that it didn't have to go through that, cause any sort of backlash. Well, that was just my fun little thought. It's been on my mind a lot since it happened, so I wanted to talk about it. Let's start with the Miami Heat. Miami Heat, they won both their games over the weekend. They are currently 12 and 10, which is fifth place in the East. They started 12 and 10 last season. They are right on projection for what we thought going into the season. They've won three in a row for the first time this season, and it's the first time they are two or more games above 500. They've remained close to 500 all season so far. They had a very impressive blowout win against the Lakers on Wednesday, and then they won their back to back over the weekend at home as well against the Suns and the Cavs. Cavs have won. They are 6-4 in the last 10 before that they had started undefeated. Suns will touch on them next, but they are 1-9 without KD this season. But with KD, they're 11-2. So we'll touch on that in just a bit. I have more to say. Does Miami's success begin and end with Jimmy Butler? Of course, their star player. And I can't believe it's been 5 years. I can't believe it's the fifth season already. 19 points per game would be the lowest he's had since the 18-19 season playing for the Timberwolves and the Sixers. While it can be seen as a pretty big positive that a lot of the offensive numbers are lower than last season for Miami, they are ninth currently in offense overall. So and uh, Hero and Butler last season both averaged 20.8 points per game. and they were the only two last season with more than 20. Hero has had a breakout season so far this season. We saw it in the preseason. We've seen it consistently so far. He's averaging 24.2 points per game. Bam Adebayo is slightly down at 16 points per game. Health is the other huge factor, I'll say. Actually, I have 3 points. First one was Jimmy Butler. Second one, health. Between their top 5 scorers last season, they averaged 54.4 games for each player. Duncan Robinson this season, 11.7 points per game. Jaime Jaquez, 8.7 points per game. Both are down from last season. Surprisingly, their overall field goal percentage and efficiency are down compared to last season as well. Their defense is slightly higher. I say slightly. I'm talking 112 compared to 112.5, but they have a lower defensive ranking throughout the league compared to last season. And the last point, I said, does it start and end with Jimmy Butler, but 3-point shooting and 3-point volume. They are averaging just over 39 attempts per game in these first 24 games, compared to a little over 33 attempts last season. While Butler doesn't shoot threes, Hero is averaging 9.9 attempts, and Robinson is averaging 6.6 attempts. And I mentioned Tyler Hero, but it helps a lot that he's developed this inside-out game because 10 attempts out of 17 and a half overall. So he is scoring a lot more at the rim, a lot more inside than he ever has. And it's just a great development, not something that I was expecting, but it's very, very fun to watch. They had an impressive win on Sunday against the Cavs. Hero had 34 points, including 5 threes. Robinson had 23 points, including 4 threes. Butler had 18 points. Bam had a double-double, 16 points, 13 rebounds. So, Butler's production, health, 3-point volume, and efficiency. Let's move on. The Suns. I said we'll do next. The Suns have dropped 3 in a row. And this might be the shortest segment that I do today because I think it's pretty simple. When your best player plays, you're a lot better. And that best player just happens to be, in my opinion, the greatest offensive player ever. So even though he's 37 years old, he is having the most efficient season of his career. We see that throughout the league this season on a few different veterans. And we'll talk about that in just a bit too. So they are currently 12 and 11 so far. They've had a difficult schedule. They've definitely have lost some games where they should have won or they didn't have an excuse to lose, even if they don't have Kevin Durant. For example, their last game on Sunday, they lost to the Magic 115 to 110 with no Paulo Banchero, no Franz Wagner. Very, very unfortunate. Jalen Suggs led all scorers with 26 points, and Goga Batadze had a season-high 21 points. It was a very close game. It was definitely winnable, despite not having KD, having Devin Booker, having Bradley Beal, having a mostly healthy lineup beyond that. This is a game they could have and should have possibly won. Even with KD, do the Suns need to address their front court depth? I'm not sure why I'm doing this as a question. They need to address it. Nurkic has played well. I didn't write down how many games, but he's averaging 16 points per game on 24 minutes. Beyond that, there is, how do we say this name? Oso Ighodaro. There's Kevin Durant. And then I think all other players are 6'6" or below. So definitely you miss lots of depth when you don't have KD, and KD is getting older. I think he's very underrated and has been throughout his career. All right, we cut there. We had some people come home and dogs were barking. So we're about done with the Suns segment. Suns began season 8-1, and they had the second best start next to the Cavs. KD will be out the next 1 to 2 weeks with ankle injury. Suns desperately need to play productive basketball in the stretch. Coming up, they play the Jazz, Trailblazers, Pacers, Pistons before taking on the Nuggets twice, then the Mavericks, then the Warriors. Hopefully, KD is back by then. That leads us well into January. Staying healthy, playing productive basketball, picking up or trading for a center as soon as possible. Go get Isaiah Stewart. Go get a center from a team that's not trying to win this season. Go and do that. The Grizzlies. We talked about them briefly last week, and we have to talk about them again because I don't no, they've lost one game since I've talked about them last. But they have won 3 in a row, 9-1 in their last 10. They are now 17-8. They've taken over second place in the West. Last week it was the Houston Rockets. Ja Morant has played 14 games and hasn't been as productive as when in other seasons when he has played. Memphis is 7-4 without Morant this season. So much like how the Magic in the East have been staying afloat without their star players, the Grizzlies have been doing superb just throughout. Great depth, great buy-in, great coaching. Jaren Jackson Jr. continues to be their leading scorer at 21.9 points per game. He's on a similar pace to last season and has remained healthy throughout the season so far. We mentioned on last episode that there are 7 players currently in double figures. Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., Desmond Bain, Santi Aldama, Jalen Wells, Zach Edey, Pippen Jr., and there are many that are close. For example, Marcus Smart at 9.6, Jay Huff 9.5, Jack LaRavia 8.6, Brandon Clark 7.4. This team could easily have 10 players in double figures. No player is. Last game against Washington. Let's go there. They did not have Ja Morant or Desmond Bain. Still managed to score 140 points. It was against the Washington Wizards, but 140 points without their top 2 offensive players, in my opinion. No player scored more than 21 points. So 140, no player more than 21, 7 players in double figures. All 12 players that dressed had at least one field goal. So no surprise, they are second in assists, only to Nuggets. They are first in blocks, third in rebounds, fourth in net rating, and they are leading in points in the paint. They lead in bench minutes and bench points. This is definitely one of the most fun teams to watch. They are the fastest team in the league as well, according to NBA.com. The Hawks. The Hawks are a sleeper team this season. And perhaps they've been a sleeper team in the East for the past few seasons. Now, despite the fact that they lost very badly to the Nuggets on Sunday, I'm still going to do this segment. They lost 141 to 111. Nuggets over the weekend had a back-to-back. They lost in overtime where Jokic had a 58-point triple-double. I didn't write it down. And then had 46 points the next night. So, yeah. More on Jokic next week. We talk about him a lot. This is the Hawks segment. They are 13-12 in the East, excuse me. So they are currently 7th. and they are currently 3 games above their preseason projection. Assist numbers have been on the rise, of course, having Trae Young there. They've been averaging 32 assists the last 3 games, and they are third in the league at 30 overall. 30 assists per game, I mean. Hawks are second in steals at 10.3, second in points in the paint, and they are top 5 in fast break points and second chance points. They are very similar to the Grizzlies in this way. 8 players are averaging double figures: Trae Young, Jalen Johnson, DeAndre Hunter, Bojan Bogdanovic, Zachary, the rookie, Risasher, Okongwu, Capella, all averaging double figures. They've been fairly healthy this season outside of DeAndre Hunter and Bojan Bogdanovic and Larry Nance Jr. I wasn't watching the Hawks, I guess, enough the last few years to really know how good Jalen Johnson was going to be this season and probably beyond. I mean, he was going from averaging 5.6 points in 15 minutes in 22-23 to 16 points in 33 minutes last season on 52 games or 52 starts. Oh, now I'm not sure. But anyways, is averaging career high 19.8 points per game on, of course, a career high attempts as well. So I probably have buried the lead enough so far in this Hawks segment because Trae Young is really who we should be talking about just overall. 12.2 assists per game, still leading the league. Had another 20-point assist game, a very exciting overtime win against the Lakers where he had 31 points and 20 assists. In the same game, LeBron had a triple-double, 39 points, 11 assists, 10 rebounds, and 80, almost had a triple-double, 38 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists. And we are not going to do any other Lakers talk beyond that for this week because we talk about them too much. Well, maybe next week. All right. So, while the top of the East might be a little bit easier to predict, I don't know the 1, 2, 3, but I can imagine who those top 3 teams are going to be in some order. The middle and going into the play-in, it's not as clear who will be above the play-in, in the play-in, outside the play-in. But I definitely think the Hawks are good enough to be in that top 6, right outside the play-in, possibly be the top 4, maybe in the 4th spot, because they have shown that they can beat the Celtics, they can beat the Cavs, they beat them twice. Will it translate to the playoffs? If you're a Hawks fan, hopefully it does. Yeah, I hope so too. I mean, they have not won a playoff series since 2021 and have been to the playoffs and lost in the first round twice since then. So, playing more solid basketball, and every team I'm talking about today, I think is a fun team to watch. Lastly, I'll talk about why I think the Mavericks are going to win the West again this season. So the Mavs, after starting 5-7, they've won 12 of the last 13, including the last 7 straight. Tomorrow they face the OKC Thunder in the quarterfinal. They won against their first matchup against the Thunder a couple of weeks ago, 121-120. They have a very difficult month of basketball coming up, playing almost all against most likely playoff basketball teams. They are currently 5th in points, 5th in rebounds, 5th in net rating, 4th in offense at 117.2. They are 9th in defense, which is a nice surprise and a big upgrade from last season. Having Kyrie Irving has worked out for them exactly how they've wanted to and has been a big luxury. I definitely think they have a few less wins if he is not on this team. It's stating the obvious, probably. If you don't have your second best player, you win less games. But definitely as someone, as another primary ball handler, as a bailout, as someone to be there when Luka is not there. Luka has played 18 of the 24 games. Kyrie has played 22 games. Um, each game has had at least one of those players, so it's been great so far, especially with two players that have had such a not so good history of health. Luka is averaging 28, 8, and 8, and that's low, which is crazy. He was third at MVP last season, but 28, 8, and 8 is actually low for him and almost not low for anyone else. Kyrie should be an all-star this season if the Mavericks continue to win. Surprisingly, getting older, but is averaging his most efficient year of his career so far. 24 points per game. Isn't that right? Yes. So on pace with his other consistent, efficient seasons. I think if the Mavs are going to be a top four team heading into the break, the Mavs will have two All Stars. Kyrie will be one of them, of course. Klay Thompson, I think, is as expected. He's averaging 13.3 points per game at 27.6 minutes. The third leading scorer, 36% from three at 7.7 attempts. Hopefully, Mavs improve on their three-point shooting overall. 37% as a team is not bad, but when you consider that Kyrie is shooting 47% from three, um, just hopefully that rubs off and we see closer to 40 if Klay Thompson is going to be a spot up shooter that much. Hey, no surprises, right? Daniel Gafford, PJ Washington continue to be great pickups for them. PJ Washington, fourth leading scorer, Daniel Gafford, fifth. And Najee Marshall has worked out great, taking the spot of what Derrick Jones Jr. was last season, even having a slightly better offensive year than Derrick Jones did last season. Quentin Grimes has had a healthy start. He started 7 of the 22 games that he's played. Spencer Dinwiddie was a great pickup for him to return to Dallas. Just more offense in a smaller role as he returns. Jaden Hardy has been consistent, only playing 14 minutes per game, which is 11th on the team. Don't know if we'll see Jaden Hardy as a Maverick beyond you know this year or next year, and perhaps he gets more of an opportunity somewhere else. Perhaps the NBA just needs to expand because yes, he is 11th in minutes. I have not even mentioned Maxi Kleber. I have not mentioned Dwight Powell. This is a team that has perhaps more depth than anyone. So I think heading into the playoffs, they're my favorite. And if they were not my favorite, I would be picking a team that has a similar archetype. A mix of young and veteran presence, a mix of length, and just has many different lineups to throw at you if needed. They might not need it. We talked a little bit last week with Alex about how the Thunder might not need to shrink their lineup to an 8 or 9 man lineup in the playoffs if they continue to play this consistently and they're healthy come playoff time. For Mavs, we'll see, but small or big, they definitely have the ability to do that. And while you cannot contain players like Jokic, you have plenty of firepower on any given night, and you just hope both of your superstars are available come playoff time. So, no predictions for no predictions for the quarterfinal. I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be a very close game. If I was not picking the Mavs to win the East, I'd be picking the Thunder. And if you've listened to me at all beyond this week, you probably know that the Thunder are one of my favorite teams to watch. So, looking forward to it, very much so. I hope that you all have a great basketball week. I'll be back next week with more basketball talk and some other talk with our guest as well. So, thank you so much and see you next time.